everybody, and welcome back to a brand new edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where we talk all things Doctor Who, usually DVDs, Blu-rays, the physical media of Doctor Who, and I suppose in some ways we're covering that because the War Games in Colour today is going to be a physical media release and feels more like a physical media thing, but nevertheless it was on the BBC, on BBC4 over Christmas. And of course we're going to talk about Joy to the World, the Doctor Who Christmas special of 2024. It may be, I don't know, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now, but it's still the most recent episode, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, so we're going to do that today. So I am, of course, as always, joined by Ryan, Bill, and Charlie. Bill, Christmas. Are you happy? Obviously, last year was the first time we had Doctor Who back on Christmas since 2017, and we've had our second RTD2 Christmas special. Are you enjoying having Doctor Who back as part of the Christmas lineup?
Yeah, it's been fine, I think, past couple of years. I would say that in terms of quality of the episode, I think this one was weaker than last year's. I think that it's difficult because it's kind of like Christmas specials. Some of them can be very good, but then some of them are much more just kind of a bit all over the place or a bit mediocre. And I feel like that could potentially apply to at least this latest one, because I suppose it's just this thing of like, it's good to have the tradition of it back, but you can understand why they kind of left off doing it for a little bit, because I feel like, it's just, we've had so many of them now, and it's always about trying to balance being accessible enough for your average person to watch on Christmas Day, and also be Christmassy enough to time in with the festive season and everything, whilst also still being a fine enough episode of Doctor Who. And as I say, like, some of them have done pretty well with that, and I think some of them have been really good episodes of Doctor Who, but this one in particular, I feel like it wasn't one of the worst ones I think we've had, but it was fairly just kind of like just a little bit above average, I'd say. Like, I feel I've watched it 3 times, so the first time I watched it I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
And then the second and third times I've started to kind of gel with it a bit more and understand what it's trying to do, and kind of liked it a lot more because of that. But it's still, like, in my opinion anyway, nowhere near as good as The Church on Ruby Road, which I felt was like kind of like a real return to form for the Christmas specials, I thought, and kind of showed what a Doctor Who Christmas special can be at their very best, kind of thing. Even if there's still a few issues with it and everything, it was still fundamentally like a good, enjoyable, like, romp of a special. With Joy to the World, it kind of had those moments, but it was still ultimately, it didn't feel like it quite lived up to all of that as much as it could have done. And I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's kind of it's like it's got a bit of an identity crisis. It's not too sure what it wants to be in terms of, does it want to be the really lovely stuff, character stuff with Anita, or does it want to just be about Joy and the Starseed and everything? And I think both those work fine on their own, but when you try to put them together in just one 60-minute slot, it doesn't quite work as well as it could have done, I think.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I think it's not an episode that, obviously this episode is written by Stephen Moffat, but I don't think it's an episode that anybody's going to be putting in Stephen Moffat's top 10 Doctor Who episodes of all time, somehow. It as you say, I do think that last year's Christmas special was better. I enjoyed it more. I felt like I got more out of it. I suppose this special is serving in many ways quite a different purpose to last year's one, because the 2023 Christmas special was introducing the new Doctor, introducing the new companion, essentially launching the arc of the season all within this story, as well as trying to fit in a bit of a romp in there. So I feel like that was that was trying to do a lot of things, but actually pulled most of them together relatively well. I don't know. Go back and listen to our podcast last year. Maybe I said it was terrible, and I'm now, rewriting history. Who knows? But whereas I feel like this year was just a romp. Like there wasn't. I don't really feel like there's anything in this story that's going to linger into any future episodes. It feels very self-contained. It's just a Christmas special. So Charlie, I'll come to you. We over the last, I don't know, what is it, 7 months, 8 months since the last, no, maybe 6 months since the last episode, we got like 2 pretty chunky clips from this episode of like, I think we'd seen about 6 or 7 minutes of this episode before it even aired. So did you feel like you had a good impression of what this story was going to be before you watched it? And did it kind of live up to, disappoint compared to that?
I'm going to keep this answer very short. No. It got like, I got the gist of the Time Hotel. I thought, right, this is going to be a fun romp. I didn't expect it to be anything special. I thought, all right, the Doctor's going to go on an adventure through all these worlds, and he'll get to use the, Chibnall location cards that we love from Survivors of the Flux.
Love them.
Yeah, I immediately thought of Survivors of the Flux after like the third one came up. Like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't bring back the best memories, but yeah, it just reminded me of it. Yeah, as an episode, I feel like my thought after finishing this, because I've actually only watched this once, could be worth a rewatch in a couple of days. I don't know, but I thought this felt like 2, like binned Sarah Jane Adventures scripts, sort of mashed into one Doctor Who episode. It just feels like the whole Anita stuff. It was a great episode. I don't think that could have lasted 50 minutes, an hour. And I think the same with the Starseed stuff and Joy. I just don't think there was enough substance to really make it work for a Christmas special. So just sort of mixed both of them together, and I don't hate this one. Bill, I think you nailed it on the head when you said it had an identity crisis, because it kind of did. It just goes off for a random like 20-minute chunk in this hotel in London. It's very random, but I do actually prefer this one to Church on Ruby Road.
Okay.
I watched Church on Ruby Road 3 times overall, twice around Christmas, once right before Space Babies, and I don't like it that much. I feel like it does a good job at tying everything together, but the Goblin stuff, I don't really get on board with that much. No. This one was a little bit less silly, but it's very weird because I don't like the plot, but I like the sort of feel of it. It just feels very fun and carefree, and it's not trying to be heaven sent. But I don't really know what to think of it. I give it like 6.5 out of 10. Yeah. We'll get onto some more stuff about it soon, because a lot of stuff happens. I feel like there's loads. Everything is happening at once, but also nothing really happens. I feel like that's one of the best ways to put it. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and I don't really know what the consensus is on this either, because I don't know. I feel like people's opinions on it are just all over the place, and I'm intrigued to hear the 2 of yours.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I mean, firstly, I love your analogy of everything's happening at once and nothing. Given that it's like a time hotel where everything can happen at once, I feel like it's a perfect analogy. A very meta analogy for this episode. And I do also agree that I feel like I don't have a good impression of what the general audience think of it, because I feel like, especially coming into this episode, there's just been a lot of negativity about it and about the show in general because of especially the finale to season 1. I feel like more people than not have been pretty negative about the show, and I mean it's just continued out the Chibnall era really, but so I don't really have a good impression. I don't think people were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, but I don't know, but some people hated it. I didn't hate it, I just didn't think it was great Doctor Who. I thought it was average Doctor Who. Ryan, let's come to you. So this episode, we looked at the marketing and like the promotion for this episode, and you had the character of Joy seemingly being like the main character. You felt like she was going to be the kind of, surrogate companion for this. She was going to be the companion for this episode. And then in reality, she actually had very little screen time, really very little character. And almost Anita was more like a developed character alongside the Doctor than Joy. So like, were they just trying to kind of throw us off? Or have they just underutilized a really quite famous actress in Nicola Coughlan? She's she's done a lot of stuff. So what's going on there? What do you think?
Yeah, it's weird. I did read a few advanced reviews beforehand, before this story came out, and a lot of people were pointing out the actress name played it. Is it Steph Wally? Is that the name of the actress? Is
Something
it
like that. Yeah, I can't quite remember, to be honest. I'll have to have a look.
Yeah, and everyone's been saying like she's the standout in this, like, and I'm just like, wow, really more than Nicola Collins. And after watching the story, I can definitely understand why now after watching it, because she really was very good. I think she's virtually an unknown actress as well. So, and the fact that she manages to steal the show somehow is frankly just amazing, really. Coming into this story, it, I wasn't overly excited about it. The only bit I was excited about was the fact that it was a Stephen Moffat episode, and he kept saying like this was going to be his last one, because I remember some interviews when he was doing Boom that he said Joy to the World. It was basically Russell didn't have time to do a Christmas special because he was so busy doing other things, so he did it basically as a favor, really, as a last minute favor. And so, and it does feel almost like it was like a last minute thing that he just threw up together. Not that it's bad. I mean, it's definitely, in terms of Stephen Moffat stories, it's Citizen Kane in comparison to Let's Kill Hitler or the wedding, especially the Wedding of Rivers song. I mean, I think those two are like Stephen Moffat stories. Those two are absolute rock bottom to it, and this is definitely not that. If I was to compare it, if I was to rank Stephen Moffat's stories, this would be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
I think it just occupies that middle area for me. I agree with Charlie. I think I enjoyed it slightly more than Church on Ruby Road, but it's only by a margin, really. I mean, if I was to rank them, they're both like 7 out of 10 stories for me, really. I think the reason why I enjoy this slightly more because I think some of the emotional beats when it comes to the 15th Doctor and his time with Anita during that middle section, I thought really stuck with me more than a lot of the stuff in Church on Ruby Road, really. And I did appreciate it for that. I mean, those were the moments that kind of helped raise the story to be that bit more than just an average run-of-the-mill story. So I did appreciate it for that an awful lot. And if this really is Stephen Moffat's final story, I mean, who knows? Never say never when it comes to these things. He did say that before with Twice Upon a Time. So
very true.
Who knows? Maybe he'll do another Favour story in the future. Who knows? But if this is the last one, at least it's not a bad one to go out on. It's like it's not. I said it's not Wedding of River Song. It's not Let's Kill Hitler or any of those type of stories. At least it's a pretty good one to go out on. So at least I'll give it. At least I'll give it that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. It's not an awful one to go out on. I don't think it'll be his last story. I'm sure he'll end up writing something else. It's Stephen Moffat. He can't stay away, can he? Let's be real. Like he'll do it. But yeah, as you say, not a bad one to potentially end on. So Bill, obviously one of the key things in this story, which in many ways surprised me, was almost how this feels such a Doctor-centric story. Like he is front and center of this story throughout. I think he's in pretty much every single scene of this story, which, you know, during season 1 when we were watching Dot and Bubble and stories like that where he's barely in it, you were like, come on, we just want to see more of the Doctor. So like it's great. It's really good to see that much more of his characters. Obviously, especially the stuff with Anita in the hotel. I felt like that was really good sort of character stuff there. Did you enjoy Ncuti's portrayal in this episode?
Yeah, he was very good. He handled, like, I don't know, it's like with any Doctors, like there's the quirky kind of witty stuff going on, but then there's also kind of like the, as you say, much more emotional moments, particularly with Anita, but also like beginning with getting the 2 mugs because he's forgotten that Ruby's left and all of that kind of stuff. I thought that was really, really well done by Ncuti. I think I think if it had been I think the thing with Anita, I think, as you say, it was really well handled, but I feel like it should really have been its own separate thing in a way. Like, I feel like I don't necessarily think you can get a whole episode out of it, but I feel like it could have been that they like faded to black when the Doctor got trapped like on Earth for a year or something, and then done that Anita stuff as like a mini episodes like released online or something afterwards to say this is what the Doctor did during that year. So then people aren't like wondering what did he do, like, you know, that kind of stuff. I feel like that might have worked a bit better because it's as you kind of say, it's you've got Nicola Coughlan there who is really famous for Derry Girls and Bridgerton and all that lot, and is a really good actress and everything, but she just feels a bit wasted in a way because she's just, you'd think, I mean, especially since her character's name is in the title, Joy, you'd kind of think that she would have more stuff going on with her, but she kind of doesn't. I mean, there's still nice, there's even with Joy, there's still nice character moments with her and the Doctor, and kind of her talking about what happened to her mother and all of that kind of stuff was really powerful stuff, I felt. But again, it just goes back to this identity crisis thing I was talking about earlier. It's like I think it was Stephen Moffat himself said in Unleashed that they just kept adding more and more stuff for that actress who plays Anita to do because they were just that impressed with her. And in a way, the end result feels like kind of tacked on. Like it's nice, lovely, emotional kind of bonding stuff and everything, but it feels like it's an afterthought compared to the rest of the episode and it feels like we've kind of lost probably more time with Nicola Coughlan than, you know, we probably should have had more time with her and the Doctor, because as you say, with the marketing and everything, she was supposed to be the companion for this special, really, and she kind of was but kind of wasn't. It's more kind of like Anita as well as Joy in a way. And it's just a bit, it's a bit strange. It's just like it works fine, and as I say, like all three of them are doing very good jobs with acting it and everything. It's just, I don't know, you'd think that they would have thought, actually, maybe as good as this Anita stuff is, maybe we need to think a bit more about spending a bit more time with Joy as well, because it's kind of, it was supposed to be the special with Nicola Coughlan, and it's just kind of like more of an afterthought now, really. But I thought Shooty and Nicola Coughlan and Anita's actress, I thought they all did really good job with everything they were given, and I felt like, you know, even if Nicola Coughlan wasn't in as much as she could have been, she's still given plenty of good material to work with, I think, in the limited amount she got. And I think I don't necessarily think it will be Moffat's last one, but I think it's more like how Twice Upon a Time felt like not necessarily great last chapter for him at the time anyway, but obviously he then came back like 6-7 years later, so I'm kind of hoping it's more of a case with this time round, that it's more just like for a few years anyway, this is his last one, but he's going to end up doing more at some point, because I feel like with someone who's got such a long history with Doctor Who as Stephen Moffat, like it feels like there should be more of a big finale, I suppose, in terms of his last ever episode almost.
Yeah, that's it. But then I guess it's almost a bit weird to think of an idea of creating a big final moment for a writer. Like, it's not about the writers in that sense, isn't it? So, like, I kind of agree with you. That feels like what it should be, but also I feel like it shouldn't be, because it's not about the writers. With Doctor Who, it's about, you know, the show and the characters and all of that.
Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it, pretty much?
Yeah, it's exactly that.
I will say, if this is, who knows, again, never say never, but if this is his last one, this would be his 5th attempt at doing a final story. Because he was supposed to leave with Time of the Doctor, he was supposed to leave at Husbands of River Song, he was supposed to leave Doctor Falls, but then he did one more after hour, twice more time, and now we have Joy to the World as his 5th attempt.
He just can't leave. Yeah.
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 And but as I said, never say never. But he did say that if Russell ever leaves as showrunner, he doesn't want to be showrunner ever again. He says, "Don't expect a Moffat to."
No, I agree.
I'm happy about, because he did a long stint. The Matt Smith era, very up and down, very mixed for me. But then he did the Capaldi era, where it felt like it was him fully unleashed, and it was much better as a result. And I feel like, as good as that was, he should leave it all alone. He should never try to top that. So I'm happy that he's kind of decided, I've done my time. I don't want to be showrunner anymore. I like to do other things.
Exactly. That's it. And I feel like I'm pretty much ready for that. Certainly, we don't need him as a showrunner again. I think some fresh blood would be very nice when it hopefully comes to a future showrunner. I mean, they haven't even commissioned another season of Doctor Who yet, so who knows? But anyway, that's a topic for another podcast, I think. But Bill, you struck on something quite interesting again about just how this episode doesn't know what it wants to be. And Charlie, I feel like there's a lot of things going on in this story. As you said, you've got the kind of this starseed plot line and Nicola Coughlan's character of Joy. You've then got the Doctor trapped for a year, and you've got 10-15 minutes of him and Anita hanging out. And then seemingly out of nowhere, we're having a little moment about COVID and, the Conservative Party breaking rules and all this kind of thing. I know it's a bit of a... Well, no, is it a controversial topic? I don't know. It's a political topic, I suppose you'd say, in this episode. Was it shoehorned in there? Was it a little bit heavy-handed? I don't know. What do you think, Charlie?
It wasn't a bad joke. I thought, oh yeah, that's Stephen having a go at Boris and all that. But it just felt out of place. Like, this happened in 2020, came out in 2021.
Yeah.
And we're in 2025 now. And I feel like the joke's just kind of run its course. It should have been in 2022 or something like that. But Chibnall maybe didn't want to do that, which I understand. But it just feels a bit late. It's like Moffat just kind of getting in a cheap shot to make some people laugh. I don't know. It felt very out of place and random. That said, that plot line with Joy was kind of the only character development she got.
Legit, yeah.
So I have to, give it credit for that. Like, I was quite sad when I saw this. Speaking of Joy, I feel like we have to talk about the ending. It's strange. I don't really get it. I don't know loads about Christianity, but it just feels like such a odd way to shoehorn Christmas into this episode, beyond having a Christmas tree in the center of the Time Hotel. Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the idea is that star is meant to become the star that is in the Christmas story, that that is where Jesus is born and everything. That's the idea behind it, and hence having Bethlehem in there. I had read rumours before this episode that we were going to see the stable and the baby Jesus and all this kind of thing, and I thought, that's probably taking it unnecessarily far. Like, do we really want to go down that territory? But I don't know. I mean, Charlie, like, the whole plot of this story, like, is it actually any good as an actual plot, as an actual story? It's basically there's this briefcase containing a star that's going to explode. So we need to try and stop it from exploding in a place where loads of people are going to get killed and somehow end up with it flying into space. Like, do you really understand it, or is it any good?
On paper, it's not awful. I mean, if you just gave me a sort of 100-word synopsis of that part of the story, not talking about the Doctor's year with Anita, it's fine. It's quite good. I think, that's great. The execution just isn't amazing. I feel like in the Time Hotel, they never really spend any time. Well, besides the whole Anita plotline, they don't spend much time away from this hotel. They, it could be, obviously there are locations, but the Doctor's not in them for very long.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a bit of missed potential. The whole dinosaur scene was quite cool. A nice throwback to Deep Breath.
Yeah.
The dinosaur CGI was actually really quite good. I was very impressed by it. Better than Deep Breaths. And if there's dodgy CGI in season 2, we know where the budget went.
Pretty much.
Like Space Babies. But the actual plot is just kind of, it's all right on paper. I think it would have been a great Sarah Jane Adventures episode. But whether there's enough for 55 minutes or, well, 40 minutes, really, that's quite questionable, because I'm not too sure. It's quite nice to see a sort of very grandiose kind of high-stakes story, because they're just fun, aren't they? Like, Star's gonna explode and it's in this briefcase. You got a Silurian there. It's just, it's a bit of fun, There's lots of like little moments in the story that I really do enjoy, like nice continuity. Like we have a Mavity line.
Yeah, it's always good.
We've got Royal Hope Hospital. That,
I saw that. Yeah.
Villengard. That was a pretty neat bit of continuity. This feels like Doctor Who more than Jodie Whittaker's episodes felt like. It definitely does feel like Doctor Who. Whereas, I guess besides the Daleks in her New Year specials, they didn't feel as much. It was very kind of isolated.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it's not awful. I like how they gave Ncuti's Doctor some kind of lore, a kind of crazy big thing that he does. Like, he didn't really have any of those just yet, really. Like, Peter Capaldi spent 24 years with River Song on Beryllium. The 10th Doctor had the confession dial? No. Chameleon Arch. He had the whole Human Age family blood stuff. The Doctors do crazy things like that, and I feel like this was Ncuti's first kind of, he just spent a year in London with this woman, and then he just went off to have a nice bootstrap paradox, which I did quite enjoy. I kind of saw it coming, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, just before we got to that moment, I was like, I was thinking, yep, this is going to be a bootstrap paradox, isn't it? And then, he explains it away. I love it. It's really good. And I also did quite like the way, like, it was quite well crafted in the opening scene, the pre-title sequence where he goes round to all these different places with his latte and whatever. Those locations become part of like the resolution of the story, where he has to go back to on the train and go and get the rope and stuff like that. I just quite like that that's all really neatly tied together into the ending of the story. It just feels like a neat way to do it, rather than him just going to random places to show the fact that it's a time hotel. There's actually much more purpose to featuring those right at the very start of the story. I thought that was quite good. So Ryan, I guess there's kind of plot, the ending of this story. Did you Joy turning into a star, and then her mum who dies actually seems to be absorbed into the star, which is the star from the Christmas Story. How do we feel about that?
I kind of, as soon as she absorbs it, I had a feeling that's what was going to happen. I could easily, it was kind of almost telegraphed immediately. And having already been through some nativity stuff, having seen my niece doing a whole spin on Christmas, different crazy spin on Christmas Story with her school, I've grown accustomed to this. And so, of course, I had a feeling like, they've ended up in Bethlehem. That's what's going to happen. And as if it wasn't Christmassy enough. So, got to have that in there. So, it didn't annoy me, but it was very predictable. It's predictable. And what you were saying about whether it's a good plot, I'm not sure if this really has a plot. It's really like a collection of scenes, really, that are somewhat neat, somewhat threaded together, but it is really a collection of scenes rather than a cohesive plot, like A, B, and C plots. So
that's really interesting. Because I like, that's a classic Moffat thing. I feel like, we've seen that in like Hellbent way back when, where there's not much plot in there. It's just a set of scenes together. I feel like that's such a Moffat thing to do. I agree.
Yeah, at times it really did remind me a lot of Hellbent, where it's like some of the emotional scenes, like these collection of scenes, I really like. I'm just not really convinced it's like a cohesive A, B, C plot. That's what it kind of felt like. I mean, not that it's bad, but it was very noticeable. I felt it more noticeable with this. I mean, the one advantage Church on Ruby Road might have is that it does have a more cohesive plot. Like, you can follow it. It does have something to it. Whereas I feel like, whereas the scenes of this, I feel like, are more stronger than in Church on Ruby Road. It's weird. It's all back and forth, really. Like, yes, Church on Ruby Road has a more cohesive plot, whereas I enjoyed the moments in this one more, and it stuck with me more. Even if there was, even the there were things that were predictable, like the whole Bethlehem stuff there, which I just, again, I just knew from the moment they arrived at that final destination, I was just like, that's Bethlehem. And one thing, as much as I love the unique stuff, one line that was a little bit weird where the doctor says, never really experienced anything like this before. And I'm like, you spent 1,000 years on Trenzalore. You spent 24 years with Riversong. And only just recently, the 14th Doctor's got to live his own normal life with Donna and her family for who knows how many years. So,
yeah, it's
you know what it's like.
There's some dumb lines in Doctor Who like that sometimes, where you're like, okay, you're saying this for the nice moment, but actually, if we're fans who've watched any episodes of the show, we know that doesn't make any sense as a line. And I mean, Bill does the Doctor being on Earth for a year and not going to meet his other Doctor, or not contacting UNIT, or not doing anything. And does that make any sense? And then also, what happens if in season 2 we have some sort of Earth invasion during 2025? Like, does this just kind of mess up the continuity and we just go, oh well, whatever?
Yeah, he's literally just going to be sat in that hotel for a whole year, and like there could be Daleks and Cybermen invading the Earth, and he's just sat there, just not getting involved, and just assuming that like one of his other selves, whether it be the 14th Doctor or a future version of the same 15th Doctor, is like getting involved instead. I mean, it's just it is a bit silly when you think about it like that, because you then just think, well, how many Doctors on Earth in the year 2025
legit
during the course of this?
This is it. We know there's a guaranteed 2 Doctors who are just living on Earth for the whole of 2025. Like, it just seems a bit silly.
It could be like that could have happened, but they just didn't show it because why would they? You know, we don't need a third plot going on.
So you're saying in a season 2 episode we're going to see the Earthbound 15th Doctor join in with the current 15th Doctor in a multi-Doctor story?
That would be so cool. I kind of wish that would happen now. I'm not even joking. I wouldn't want to see David Tennant, but it would be nice if, when David inevitably returns for the 70th or 75th, it would be nice if you referenced 2025.
Yes.
And said, like, when you visited me. That would be actually a really nice callback. And I know for a fact that David will return in the 70th or 75th.
Of course he will.
It's just going to happen.
Yes, so, it's inevitable. Russell will be back to write it again, just because why not? And he'll write David Tennant as the 23rd Doctor or something.
Yeah, that's just a given now. For every anniversary special, David Tennant's got to be in it. He was in for the 50th, he was in for the 60th. Who knows how many more he'll do?
Well, that's it. He is an ever present in the world of Doctor Who. Well, let's draw our conversation on Joys of the World towards a conclusion. Bill, would you say this is a story you'd go back and watch, or is it very much a marathon only story now?
I mean, I did end up watching it 3 times, and it did get better during all those times. So there is that going for it. Like, I think it's very rewatchable, if in terms of like sticking something on in the background whilst you do cleaning or whatever. Like, it's that kind of thing of like, it's something to look at and it's something to occasionally engage with and enjoy. And I think that's fine, you know, especially as a Christmas special. Some of them do sometimes feel a bit like that anyway. Like, they're more just there because it's Christmas kind of thing. Like, it's just there for the family to watch whilst, you know, they've just had their Christmas dinner or something like that. I feel like it works fine as it is, but there've been better Christmas specials, but there's also been worse ones. So it's somewhere in the middle, I suppose, and that's fine. I was expecting probably it to be a bit better than that, especially kind of needing, I suppose, some kind of tonic after Empire of Death and the way that went and all that stuff. I don't think Joy to the World was quite what I'd been hoping for in terms of that, but it wasn't necessarily not that it completely either. Like, there were moments to enjoy and moments that I found funny or moving or whatever. And yeah, I'll give it probably a 6.5 out of 10, I'd say. I think so, around about kind of just above average and getting towards good kind of section, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And Charlie, I think it sits in the same sort of area for you, doesn't it? I mean, I feel like there isn't a single Doctor Who Christmas special I'd give above maybe like an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. I don't feel like there's any, there's no 10 out of 10s in there. So does this sit in the mid range, higher range for you? How does it sit?
I don't like many of the Christmas specials, I'm going to be honest. So this is probably actually one of the better Christmas specials.
Okay.
But that's not really a compliment. I'd say just a very solid 6 out of 10. It's just there.
Yeah.
I have a thing I do every year where I watch all of the Christmas specials, one per day, with the last one being on Christmas Eve, unless there is one that year. So I guess I'm watching this on Christmas Eve next year because I have to. But I'd never just like choose to watch it off the shelf. Not that I do that with any Christmas specials, really. Because I watch all of them at least once a year. Well, once a year, basically. So, yeah, in a word, it's just kind of okay. It's unremarkable. Like you said, Bill, there's nice moments, but I'm just, I'm not excited to rewatch this one the way I am with maybe, I'd say my favourite is probably A Christmas Carol. I'd give that like a 9 out of 10. End of Time Part 1, I mean, it's kind of a package deal, End of Time, but I'd give the whole thing maybe an 8.
I'd agree.
Yeah, lots of the rest, not a huge fan. So this is probably quite high, kind of on the Christmas special ranking.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got stories like The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe on the list, that's pretty abysmal, isn't it? Yeah, I can't remember the last time I watched that. It was pretty awful. Ryan, is this better than The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe?
Infinitely so. I mean, this is definitely that. I mean, I can list maybe on one hand, like maybe 3 or 4 things I liked in that story and not much else, which is pretty bad, really. The only thing I really liked was the last few minutes, that ending, but that's really it. So, yeah, I would place this in the middle. I mean, Christmas Carol, for me, is phenomenal. I love that story so much. It's still my favourite. It's probably a 10 out of 10 story for me. I think it's one of the best versions of A Christmas Carol, period, alongside the Patrick Stewart version and the Muppet version. So I just loved it so much. My very close second would be Twice Upon a Time. But Twice Upon a Time is a very weird one because I almost see that as the third closing chapter of the Capaldi end trilogy with World Enough and Time, The Doctor Falls, and Twice Upon a Time. In a way, I see World Enough and Time as the setup, The Doctor Falls as the big final battle, epic finale, and Twice Upon a Time as like the closing coda of the whole thing. In a way, it feels almost the least Christmas special. It feels more like a third and final closing chapter to that end story. But then again, I love it so much. I mean, I think those last 3, the Capaldi end trilogy, as I call it, is probably my favourite regeneration story to date. I just absolutely love it. And speaking of Capaldi, I think all of his Christmas specials are consistently great for me. They're like consistent 8 out of 10s for me. Even Return of Dr. Mysterio, I rewatched that very recently with my niece because she wanted to watch it. Because she heard superheroes, Doctor Who, and she wanted to watch it. She was interested, and she really enjoyed it. And I do have a massive soft spot for that. So yeah, I would say it doesn't reach the highs of like Christmas Carol or the Capaldi specials or even End of Time, but it's in the middle. I would actually, it's in terms of Moffat, it's definitely way better than. I mean, Doctor Widow, the Wardrobe. What else is there to say about that one? And I would even put this slightly above Time of the Doctor as well, because I thought that was just a mess. Some good ideas and moments aside, it was a mess, and because Time of the Doctor baffles me because I'm just like, how can you try and do all that in 1 hour is beyond me, and I'm not even sure if that it does proper justice to the Matt Smith era as a whole. But so yeah, I would say of all the specials, it's definitely in the middle ground for me. And in terms of Moffat stories, it's definitely in the middle. If I was to give it a rating, it would be a 7 out of 10. It's just barely a 7 out of 10. It's the same score I gave Church on Ruby Road. And so yeah, it's definitely, it's not among the best, but it's far from the worst for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree. I think that average 6.5, 7 out of 10, somewhere in the middle, feels about right for Joy to the World. And well, alongside Joy to the World, we got a season 2 trailer, albeit it was about 20 seconds long. Charlie, are you more excited for season 2 having seen this trailer? Has it made no difference? Are you less excited?
Thing is, I quite liked season 1, so it kind of, besides the finale and the first episode, but the middle, like 5 episodes, I'd say, of season 1 was very, very solid. So yeah, I was already looking forward to season 2. I wasn't like incredibly hyped about it because there's not like an enormous cliffhanger. Yeah. It's just kind of the Doctor leaves Ruby. That's that. Great. Can't wait for next year. This has just sort of cemented my excitement. Like, yeah, this doesn't look bad. I liked the I think everyone was talking about this. The shot of the sort of creepy cartoon character climbing out of the screen. Yeah. That looks fantastic. And
that does look great.
I feel like that's definitely another sort of godlike character doing that. Feel like it's probably going to be something along the lines of the Toymaker, the Maestro, Sutek, whatever. Yeah. That sort of pantheon of gods. I feel like it must be something to do with that. The rest of it was just kind of, it kind of reminded me of the Flux trailer, where it's just kind of various shots of Doctor and companion like running, and they're just standing somewhere. It's just kind of like that. Varada is in the season. Great. What she's saying, like, I want you to take me home. Cool. So we're going to have another, season 19 Tegan then.
Yeah, seems like it.
Hopefully a bit better executed, but I'm looking forward to it though. And Ruby will be in the season 2 with Kate. That's great. I like that. That's what they've done with her character. She'll kind of be a secondary companion, kind of like a Mickey or a Rory. I quite like that. Yeah. And we didn't actually mention that she's in the episode 2.
Very true. For about 5 seconds,
Yeah, nothing really happens with her, but it's nice to see that she's in a scene.
Yeah, she still exists. She's still a part of the show, so yeah.
But overall, I think, I'm excited for season 2. I just hope it's released before May, because I feel like May is too late to really sort of build off the hype of the Christmas special, and June, July finishing is too early to get excited for the Christmas special. So it's kind of just the exact middle of the year is just a very awkward spot for a 8-episode season to exist.
Yeah.
So I quite hope it's February, March.
Yeah.
Weirdly, even I know Chibnall was like this, but Russell is too. They're very reluctant to, give us the release dates, which is a bit strange because why not?
Well, exactly. I know.
The issue with season 1 was, of course, they had to do all the dubbing and in different languages because it's Disney Plus. They've got these sorts of requirements, but surely they should have thought about that in advance for season 2. Hopefully,
you'd like to think so. I mean, they wrapped filming on it like in July last year, so they've already had 6 months of post-production. So you'd like to think they'd by now know when they're going to be able to release it.
Yeah, you'd like to think. But yeah, I just quite hope that season 3 is greenlit quite soon, and 4 would be nice as well, because I'm getting a little bit worried, because I feel like if there was a season 3 in the pipeline, it should have been at least in pre-production by now, and that doesn't seem to be the case. So was this just a 2-season thing from Disney? Like, I'm quite worried about what's going to happen next, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things said, hasn't there? A lot of rumours. I feel like ultimately we don't know. We don't know anything. I think my strongest opinion is that there is a very, very, very small chance that we get a season 3 in spring next year. I don't think that's happening now because they haven't started filming it yet. Like, we've seen how long the post-production and just doing everything after a season has taken so far on the first 2. So even if they started filming tomorrow, they wouldn't be done with it till Christmas. So I don't think it's coming out till September next year at the earliest, I would say. And they'll either put the spin-off in spring next year unless they decide to wear it in the autumn of this year. But I kind of think it's just going to end up in the Doctor Who slot in spring next year, and then hopefully Disney will greenlight it and we'll get a season 3, but it may well be in 2027, which just seems a bit rubbish, really. Yeah, I don't know.
I'll say, I remember before RTD02 started, he said that the Who-niverse has started, it's going to grow. And so far, we've only had one season, and we're only going to get one spin-off. But there hasn't really been much, really, about this whole Who-niverse. Like, it's going to be like it's going to happen. It's like it's only one spin-off, and it's about Unit taking on the Sea Devils, it seems like. And it's like... It's been that movement. So I don't know if things have happened that we just don't know about, or
it just doesn't feel like Disney Doctor Who has been as successful, or RTD2 has not been as successful as I think they wanted or hoped or planned it to be 4 years ago when this was becoming a thing. Because otherwise, as you say, Ryan, I think we would have had a spin-off on TV by now. We'd have 4 seasons commissioned. Like, there'd be a lot more certainty and a lot more content if it had been that much more successful in whatever metrics Disney or the BBC are choosing to kind of read that via. I just don't think that's there.
Yeah, I'm just starting to... Because even though the season 2 trailer did look intrigued, I'm not overly excited with the fact that there hasn't been much momentum around it. And as I said, the Disney RTD2 hasn't been as hyped as it just, hasn't got that momentum that we thought it was going to have. I'm just a bit concerned that I feel like Doctor's starting to become that way it was in the 80s, where it's like, oh, it's another season with another Doctor. Not that it's that bad. It's just like, oh, we've got a good season with this good Doctor, and yeah, that's just it. I'm worried it's kind of becoming a bit like that, rather than having, some huge momentum like we got during the first RTD era and during the Capaldi era and that first season with Matt Smith. I mean, it doesn't really seem to have that much. I don't know. I'm not feeling as overly excited about it as I used to be, and I'm just a bit like, is it the show? Is it me? What's going on?
I feel the same. Yeah, I know. I agree. I mean, I think the kind of relaunch of the show has just not been successful in the mainstream. It hasn't done what its purpose was, which was to kind of bring back the mainstream audience. I don't think that's happened. I don't think you can really say the audience has particularly increased from the Chibnall era. Like, the Chibnall people are mostly still there because we're hardcore Doctor Who fans, but it hasn't suddenly garnered another 4 million new fans in the UK or something back to the RTD1 levels. That just hasn't happened. So I don't know, Bill, are you feeling the excitement for season 2 based off the trailer? I mean, there's not a Dalek in there to get us excited or anything, but did it bring you any excitement?
I wouldn't say excitement. I think it's just kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, there's a new series of Doctor Who that will come hopefully in a couple of months. That'll be nice thing to have. I don't really kind of... They did also release a clip on Doctor Who Unleashed of a first look at the new season.
Yeah,
I don't really like the fact that it seems like, anyway, like Belindra is going to be basically a Moffat 2.0 in terms of being a doctor or nurse or medical student or whatever. I just kind of feel, and then as you say, with the whole kind of I want to get back home, that's very Tegan Javanka vibes and everything. It just kind of feels like they've run out of really good ideas for companions at this point. Like, even Ruby felt a bit like kind of Rose 2.0 in some ways, and then you've got Joy kind of in this special, just like her ending is very stereotypical of the new series at this point, which is nearly 20 years old now. And it's the fact that it's all about the companion saving the day and being the most important person that in the whole universe, that ever existed. It just kind of feels like it's not necessarily bad stuff, but it's just stuff that we've seen 20 nearly years of. And it just, I think this is it. This is kind of like, I feel like this is why after this current era, we really do need fresh blood. We need someone brand new to come in, not Chibnall 2, not Chibnall 2 or Moffat 2 or whatever. We need something brand new. We need someone who maybe even is not even that much of a fan of the show. Like,
I agree.
Just like a really good head writer that's got a lot of experience being a head writer or showrunner. Just that type of person to come in and give a fresh angle on the show. And I think that's probably the issue with the general audience at the minute is I don't necessarily think Doctor Who's like unpopular, but it's not really. It's just kind of there in the background, and it's just ticking away. It's not really kind of exciting people. I know like TV is kind of difficult to say these days with viewing figures and stuff. Like, people just not watching live TV that much anymore anyway. But even so, you'd have thought that there would be more people interested in this supposed like new relaunch, basically. Like, they tried to make it like 2005 again. I don't think it's really worked as well as they wanted it to anyway. I don't necessarily think it's in danger of being cancelled. Like, even if like the worst comes to worst and Disney drops out after season 2, the BBC will still make it without them somehow, even if it's just them and Bad Wolf. But I feel like it's more just, it's not like a managed decline, but it's just kind of something that's there ticking away in the background. And you might, obviously, us diehard fans will continue watching it regardless. Like, they could cast a talking orange as a Doctor and we'll still watch it. It's just kind of like,
and moan about it on a podcast.
We'll still moan about it, but we'll still watch it at the same time. Like, we'll still be watching it, but for the casual audience, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, Doctor Who's still going, isn't it? It's not really kind of like, oh, I'm really excited to watch this new episode of Doctor Who. And I feel like probably the closest we got to that was with the 60th, because David Tennant and Catherine Tate came back. And I feel like maybe because the general audience have seen that and thought, actually, like the fact that the reason why David Tennant's face came back was kind of not thoroughly explained in a way. Like, it was, but it wasn't at the same time. I feel like to a general audience member, it would just be like, oh, so they didn't even really kind of address that, so why should I bother continue watching it, kind of thing. Like, I think that's the problem with it at the minute, is it's not in the greatest place, but it's not in the worst place either. I think the BBC is going to continue making it no matter what, because they'd be stupid basically not to, because it makes them so much money anyway. I feel like from a business point of view, if nothing else, it doesn't make sense for them to cancel it, but it just feels like it needs a kick up the backside. Basically, it needs some kind of like real, this is a brand new Doctor Who here. And I feel like what we've got with the current era, at least, isn't really like that. I think it was hyped up to be like that, but it just isn't at the minute anyway.
Funny what you were saying, as it's just exactly how I feel like with the Shootigatwa era stuff. As said, it just feels like early 80s Doctor Who with Peter Dave. So it's like, oh, it's a solid season with a solid Doctor, and that's it. It's enjoyable, but it hasn't like, really stuck with me like earlier iterations. I mean, yes, this era is a million times better than the Chibnall era. That's a guarantee, but even then, that's not really saying much. And and controversially, I'm wondering, after Chibnall, maybe we kind of needed someone completely brand new to take over, because honestly, I feel like that's what this show really needs, is some brand new, fresh blood coming in. Yes, I know getting a brand new person, that could have been a risky gamble, but that's what creativity is all about, taking risks. And I feel like bringing Russell back felt like the safest option there is, almost, really. And I'm just a bit worried that it's going to suffer that decline that it did face in the 80s. I mean, I was looking at I know I was talking about ratings and all that, but it was the 6th most watched program on Christmas Day with only, I think it was like 6 million viewers, and like the Gromit, the second most, got like 16 or 17 million. It was just enormous, and honestly, that was the best thing I watched that Christmas. It was Wallace and Gromit, because then again, it was Gromit. So it's and again, I'm going to say something that might be controversial, so I do apologize for this, but I wouldn't mind if there was a little bit of a hiatus, a period of a hiatus, like 4 or 5 years. It just goes away for a little bit, and then it comes back like this fresh blood relaunch, because that was the benefit of modern Doctor Who when it came back. I mean, yes, it was like a 15-year wait, but it had still had kind of enough, definitely that time to kind of build that momentum of coming back. And I feel like maybe I'm not saying it should take us quite a long wait as 15 years, but somewhere like a 5-year wait, take a period of that to just go away and then come back with this like brand new, fresh relaunch with a new creative team behind it, new writers, maybe even a new Doctor and companion as well. Just brand new everything. Could stand a chance of being something like becoming really popular and in the zeitgeist again.
That's it. And well, it hasn't happened so far, so maybe it needs a rest. I don't know. But let's talk about something. Let's move on from negative things to more positive things and talk about something that we all like, which is classic Doctor Who. Because, of course, 2 days before Christmas, on the 23rd of December, not November, 20th December, we got to enjoy the War Games in colour. A 90-minute cut-down version of a 4-hour story, colourised for us all to enjoy with brand new special effects, brand new music, intriguingly in some places, and a new regeneration scene for the second Doctor. So, Bill, let's come to you first. What were your... What did you enjoy it?
No. No. I'm sorry.
Oh, dear.
I mean, it's difficult. I think fundamentally, and I think I've realised this now, the colourizations are not for me. I think that's just, they're just not for... I think if you enjoyed it, and like, I think if people are getting into the classic series because of these colorizations, then that's completely fine. Like, like, all power to you. But I just, for me anyway, like, as someone who literally the War Games is his favorite story ever, like, it's a pretty big pressure anyway, to be fair on them. Like, I wasn't really expecting to be like wowed, thinking, oh my god, I've gained so much more, like, of a more kind of, I'm going to see the whole story in completely different lights now. Like, that just didn't happen. There were bits I liked. Like, I liked the regeneration. Like, I felt that was really good. But obviously, like, that was something that was taken from a fan, and I liked the original fan-made version as well of it, and I thought that was really well done. I liked... I liked the colorization itself in terms of how it looked. I felt like that was pretty good. But then I also liked the Dalek one for that as well. And yet, that, I think more than anything, it's the editing which keeps doing it for me. It's the editing choices, and I think it was even worse with the War Games, actually, because this is a 10-parter. Now, it's okay to say, it needs some stuff cutting out, like the constant getting captured, escaping, then getting captured again. Fine, it's fine to kind of trim that out. Although I think they kept most of that in, to be honest, which is kind of strange. But then there's stuff going on, especially towards it's like the last few episodes. I feel like they take place in about 15-20 minutes of the colorization itself, when we spend quite a bit of time on the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then episodes 7, 8, and 9 are kind of just like done in very quick order. So it's like there's an important aspect of the story itself in terms of the resistance that is kind of not really, like, most of the bits of that is cut out of this colorization. So you've got that Mexican bandits leader just suddenly like appearing out of nowhere, and there's no context as to who he is, what he's doing there, and what is his relationship to the Doctor and all the others. You've got like the warlord himself, played by the brilliant Philip Maddock, kind of like appearing for like 2-3 minutes, then just disappearing until like the very end of the colorization, or pretty much. And it's just kind of like, it just feels like, yes, it's great to colorize these things. It's great to see like a Patrick Troughton story in color. That's great. I think that's wonderful. But I just feel like the editing especially is just not working in their favorite minute. And I feel like it's, again, that kind of thing of, I think because they haven't, I mean, I'm assuming anyway, they haven't really got too many people working on the editing side of it who are kind of young kind of people kind of working on that side of it. I feel like if they had some kind of advisor, or if it was a younger editor or something like that that came in, someone who is like a, you know, like a Generation Z or Generation Alpha kind of person that came into it, and because it's all this thing of attention spans and how they're supposed to be shorter now with younger people than they've ever been, or something like that. But I just feel like, again, it's a very thin line. You've got to kind of be careful how you cross, and you want it to be like you've tackled it, you've trimmed out all the fat of it, and like made it so that it is still engaging enough for young people, but it's also about like not coming across as too condescending in a way, and not just getting rid of quite important plot points just because you just haven't got the time to leave them in. I feel like, I think that's my main issue of the colorizations, is the editing side of it, and some of the music choices as well. Like, I don't mind the idea of the war chief being the master, I'm going to say that now, but I don't know if having the Saxon master theme play for most of that really fitted in well with it. Like they used Delgado's theme, I think, at one point.
Yeah, they did.
And I feel like they should have just stuck with Delgado's theme, because that obviously works better, because that is from like only a year or two later after the War Games came out. So it fits in more of the period. But having the Saxon master theme kind of blaring out is just kind of like, I don't know. And then it's the model that they did of the base from the outside was kind of all right, but I got a bit sick of it because they kept coming back to it like again and again and again, especially in the last half of it, and just being like, oh, this is where we are, we're still in the base. And I'm just kind of, I keep thinking every time that I see it, it's a bit like a sort of, it's like something out of Thunderbirds or Captain Scarlet. It's like a Jerry Anderson type of parody.
That's what it is.
Of a base. It's just a bit. It's, I don't know. It's just a bit strange. You've got little Viking ships and biplanes going past, and it's just. I get what they're trying to do, and I don't mean any offense to the people that are working on it. I think they've all done a good job in terms of like colorizing it and making it work within the formats that they've got, but I feel like ultimately it's still just not going about it in the right way. And I feel like, for me as a fan, I'm not really interested in checking out any other colorizations, it has to be said, because I just feel like I myself don't get much out of them. Like, they're nice to look at if you're just looking purely at the visual stuff, the fact that we've got a black and white story in color. I think that's fine. I think that's great. But beyond that, it's just not for me, I think, ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think, it's not necessarily meant for us. I mean, I did quite enjoy this one, but I think it's generally targeted at a different audience, and especially when we love the original so much, it's naturally gonna be hard to kind of warm to a version that's cut out over half of the story essentially. And as you say, there's some really rushed stuff in there. I kind of felt like for the first 30 minutes or so when we were doing the 1917 stuff, that was all felt reasonably okay, kind of paced. And then when we got to like the headquarters bit, sort of just a little bit into that bit, suddenly it's like we ramped up to 100 miles an hour, and it was like cut, dramatic music. Let's get through like 5 episodes worth of the story in about 20 minutes. It's slightly crazy how it just suddenly picked up. I feel like we had the same problem with Daleks in Colour as well, of it doing that quite a lot. So I felt that was a bit of a shame, even if sort of as a whole package, I kind of enjoyed sitting down and watching it as a whole package, but I'm treating it as almost a completely different thing to the original The War Games, because it is completely different. As you say, there's characters that are essentially cut out of the story almost completely and then introduced in, and a different ending, and the War Chief Master, and all these kind of things being added into it that just make it different. I think just make it a fundamentally kind of different story, really. So Charlie, did you get any more enjoyment from this than Bill? I know you're obviously a fan of this story as well. Did you feel like they butchered the original, or did you enjoy it?
Yeah, pretty much, Bill. Exactly what you said. What's going on here? Like, I'm the youngest out of the 4 of us. I can confirm I have 0 attention span, right? Like, I mean, right in the middle of Gen Z, yeah, it's true. And it's the same for everyone. But I will sit down for 244 minutes and watch the War Games without blinking. Seriously, I love this story so much.
Yeah.
It's just, I just love it. But this colorization is just it's not it. Yeah, like you guys were saying, at the start, I was like, this is going at an all right pace. You know, all the 1917 stuff, it was great. And then I sort of realized I was halfway through the whole thing. And I was like, how on earth are you going to do this? It's like I was okay with the very ending. It was nice to sort of disprove season 6B, which I'm not a big fan of. Yeah, it's okay, like that ending stuff, but generally it's just very poorly cut. I feel like, why would you choose, like, firstly, who is asking for colorizations? Seriously, I would rather
Russell T Davies. That's it.
Yeah, I would much rather animations, to be honest. I think we all would. And then why would you pick I guess it's the last black and white story, but even then, why do you pick one that's 4 hours long and then feel the need, actually, instead of picking a different story that could actually be shortened down and colorized, like, I don't know, I can't actually think of an example. Lots of the 60 stories are quite reasonably placed, maybe like the Web Planet or something. A much worse story, but let's not get into that. I sort of understand the reason for the War Games, but even then, like, why pick one that you have to shorten to less than half its original runtime? That's it. Like, why?
Yeah.
I don't know why you do that. So yeah, it's, again, I love the War Games. I'm never ever going to watch the War Games in color again. I wouldn't mind a 4-hour colorized version of the War Games with a regeneration at the end. That's amazing. But just, I don't really feel the need, like, no one is going to watch this again. That's it, basically.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm in the minority here. Ryan, did you enjoy it, or are you in the same boat as Bill and Charlie?
Oh me, oh my, oh me. Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as all of them. You two perfectly described my thoughts on it. Oh Lord, yeah. Someone who has gone on record as saying that the War Games is perhaps my second or third favorite classic Doctor Who story ever. My favorite 60s Doctor Who story. My favorite Patrick Troughton story. Rivals Capaldi's End trilogy as my favorite regeneration story. I mean, they are pretty neck and neck for me. As someone who it's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. It's kind of pained me, honestly. Just the editing, and it broke my heart and hurt my soul, man. It really hurt me.
Oh dear.
It really hurt me on a personal level, almost.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more so than the Daleks, because some of the edits, it completely drove me up the wall. It just drove me up the wall, and the fact, and it didn't really help that I was pretty tired at that point. I was a bit tired. It was very late when I watched it, and that really didn't help. And it just, it was really frustrating, honestly. Yeah, it's nice that we get a regeneration, like an actual regeneration from 2 to 3 at the end. But then again, I've pretty much seen that whole verbatim really in that awesome fan video.
Yeah.
So why would you need to see that when you've already got it online? Honestly, the actual colorization is not bad. I'll give the team points for that, but I just don't get the point of these colorizations. I really don't get them. It's just the editing on both of these. I complained it last time. I was mad about it the last time. I'm just as mad, if not more so, with this one. It's just, what's this for? I don't get it. I really don't get it. It's, oh my Lord. Yeah, there it is. Those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm in a minority of one then. Maybe it's because I haven't watched the War Games for a few years that I just don't remember the proper version well enough to be able to hate the new version as much. But I see its flaws. I do see its flaws. I think the editing from the second half onwards is pretty bad. But I do really like the colorization. I think that's really impressive, and the colors do look really good throughout, and the different zones, and yeah, I think all of that is really effectively done. The little extra bits they've added on, I do agree with you, Bill, that the shot of the sort of headquarters thing kind of just doesn't look very good. I feel like they kept using it to cover up where they wanted to jump into a scene in the middle of it and not make it look dodgy, and so they just cut to that again. And I think they did exactly the same where they had those shots of Gallifrey, which were clearly reused from Heaven Sent. That panning shot across at the end of Heaven Sent was there, and again, I think they were just using them to try and make cuts where they really needed to. But I did quite enjoy those scenes. I felt like the shots of the Doctors appearing on the screen looked really bad. Personally, I just think there was such bad generic promo shots that like they're the generic promos we've all seen 100 times, and it's really jarring. Rather than like, I don't know, a proper candid or just like a clip of them in action or something. I don't know, something a bit more could have been done with that, I feel like. But then I did like the regeneration scene. I thought that was really quite effectively done, and leading into the beginning of Spared from Space and then cutting to the Pertwee credits style as well. I thought that was quite an effective idea as well. So I agree with you all. It's not for us. It's got major problems with the editing, but sitting down and watching it for an hour and a half, I did reasonably enjoy it. And I don't think Charlie, I think I will watch it again. I don't think that will be the last time I ever watch it. It's fair enough. But I do think I will watch it again, just probably not as frequently as I watch the proper version, because that is how this episode or this story is meant to be viewed. Yeah, there we go. That is my 2-minute review of the War Games in Colour.
Yeah, it's just last thing, the whole length. I can understand that maybe people wouldn't want to watch like this over like 10-part story, but even when I watched it for the very first time more than a decade ago, it felt like a breezy watch to me. I never got the criticism that it was overly long. I thought it was perfectly paced, honestly, as it was. I just trying to whittle all that down into just an hour and a half, basically cutting 2/3 of it out. It just it makes no sense to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. And so, okay, well, I'm going to really quickly go around the room. I think I know what the answer you're all going to give me, but I'm still going to ask the question. Did you enjoy Joy to the World more or the War Games in Colour more? Bill, which one did you enjoy more?
Joy to the World, but well, yeah, I hated War Games in Colour a lot more. I enjoyed Joy to the World a lot more, but I think my Christmas highlight really was Wallace and Gromit, which says a lot, really.
There we go. Yeah, Ryan, are you in the same boat?
Exactly the same, but Joy to the World looks like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece in comparison to the editing hatchet butcher job that was War Games in Colour. But then again, if you want the perfect Christmas experience, just watch Wallace and Gromit. Honestly, you'll get way more out of it.
There we go. And Charlie, any difference for you?
Not at all. It's yeah, joy to the world. I mean, even then, like you were saying, both of you, Wallace and Gromit, clears both. So does Gavin and Stacey. It's just,
It's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm obviously the Doctor Who announcement recently that's got me most excited is season 7, but that's for another day.
That is for another day, but rest assured we're all very excited about that, and there will be a very in-depth podcast to cover what I consider to be the best season of classic Doctor Who, so we'll be talking lots more about that in the future. But that is just about all we've got time for on this edition of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining and listening in to all our festive waffling about Doctor Who, even if some of it's been quite negative. But hopefully you've still enjoyed it, and we do all love Doctor Who, and we only say these things because we really, really love the show so much. But yes, that is all we've got time for in this edition of the podcast. Remember to check us out on socials at KerVAM Pod. You can check us out on YouTube, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But that's about it. And so without further ado, I'll say thank you from Ryan, from Bill, from Charlie and myself, and we'll see you again very soon.